Hello, my name is Robert and welcome to my channel where I talk about everything automated algorithmic trading or simply algo trading. Now if you've been following the channel for the last couple of weeks, then you'll know I have been aggressively taking OANDA apart piece by piece with the trading bot, analyzing the markets and watching them closely. In fact, over the last 5 weeks has been quite a roller coaster for volatility and excitement within the market. And for the grid bot experiment, quite profitable. That is what this video is going to be all about. So let's get into it right away with the very first thing being the chart of the last 5 weeks. Now I've set this up so that each candle represents 1 week of data to make it easy to see just where the market has been versus where it is now. The markets are closed today, and that's probably a good thing because it has just been crazy this last 2 weeks especially. As you can see from the 2 last candles, we are just about back to the price level we were at 5 weeks ago. The market has lost almost all of the value it gained 3 weeks ago. This is where I can't emphasize enough. If you have a good, clear profit above your trading fees, take it. I have read so many people over the last 2 weeks crying about how they didn't sell when they should have. This is very critical. Don't underestimate the market doing a complete turnaround and wiping out any gains that you have not actually taken. The market may go back up and you might get a second chance if you are one of these people that were holding on for higher prices. Then again, it might not. There's no way of knowing. So it's important that you take your profits when the opportunity is given to you. Do not underestimate just how vicious the market can get for the most insanest of reasons. Having a trading strategy that can weather the test of time is absolutely critical. There are hundreds of thousands of different approaches, and every single one of them will work in a bullish market. But as soon as the market turns bearish, you're going to find out just how many get decimated. And that is what we have seen for the last 5 weeks. 3 weeks of incredible prices, and then 2 weeks of decimation. If you have the right strategy and you spent the time researching the market and analyzing the price action, you will weather it. But if you aren't prepared for this type of situation or worse, because next week it could continue to drop downwards. We just don't know the way things are going within the market right now. It is so unpredictable that even on lower time frames, there's no clear indication of direction. For all the prognosticators and predictions out there, the reality is this market is just a complete roller coaster at the moment. And you still see within the order book that there tends to be more short pressure than long pressure. Meaning right now, the bears are driving the market. And we have seen that extensively with the last 2 weeks. The bears have more resistance in the market, more shorts. So there is a good chance that this resistance is going to lower the price of the market more. I've talked about this before. Don't focus on a lot of the nonsense statistics. Look at the actual number of sells versus buys. See where the pressure is from the order book level, and that will give you a good, clear indication of just where the market is going. And that is something that is absolutely vital when the market is in this kind of a state where it completely retraces at such phenomenal levels. Now let's actually move to the bot itself and look at its actual logs, because there's a lot to talk about there that really heightens the awareness of just how crazy this market is. Okay, we are looking at the log, and I'm going to start this discussion of this part with the last week only, as this represents the most recent changes in the bot, and where I myself lowered my own level of risk because of what I saw going on in in the week before last market, 2 weeks ago. So I went from a 45% risk level down to a 37% risk level, just because of what I was concerned with the changes that you are going to see in this log data that I made to the bot, and I put them online for testing. So, starting the 6th, the end of the 5th, you're looking at the Tokyo-Sydney market with the market already in a sell-off period. But if we go to 4 p.m. on the 5th, which you'll see there's only one entry, a sell-off. That pretty much tells you how quiet that day was. And I did post a short video talking about how quiet the market was. Little did I realize when that made that video just how insane this last week was really going to be, where I could just watch buys and sells in motion because of the level of volatility. So as you can see, we have 2 shorts and a buy, or 2 sells and a buy. And you see this pattern throughout the page. Nothing overly the top here, no consolidation pricing, no clustering, nothing that is going to actively suggest what was coming. So as we progress, you begin to see a little more activity, more buys, more sells, a couple of replacement orders, which are the beginning signs of consolidation. The bot's algorithms predicting the consolidation price. And there's only 2 areas that can take place. One, it has to be a new purchase completely outside the current band, meaning the price in this case is going upwards. And that's exactly what we see, is it sold off and then it purchased again using the more aggressive algorithm showing the unit size higher. And then it made another purchase higher than the previous as the price continued to climb. That is the slow bullish state that we entered for that day. That turned out throughout the day to be a huge bullish direction. But even with that bullish direction, you see quite a few places where the market was an aggressive tug and war between the bulls and the bears. And that continued throughout the whole day. In fact, it continued to the point that you see that the bot actually crashed because OANDA didn't respond. But the systems brought it back up online, and it picked up right where it left off, making sells and more purchases. And then you see where it started making much more aggressive behaviors because the volatility was becoming unstable at this point. And it just continues getting more and more unstable as the week itself continues. Here you see a huge bullish run, the bot racking up huge amounts of accumulation. And you see within the margin used, I literally doubled the amount of money in the market just in this short time frame with the London-New York session. And it just kept going quite aggressively. Even though I had a few retracements along the way, you could see the unit numbers just continued to rack up and go higher. And you could see that my accumulations actually reached a peak point of $24 for my margin used. And then it started slowing down and reducing itself as the market started going back into a bearish state. So, and then once we get to the bottom of that bearish state, an aggressive run and huge accumulations. All throughout the day, you see this tug of war back and forth. Between the 7th and the 8th, it really just hit an apex of going to town. And then you see what looks like on the 8th starting to be the huge market downswing, an aggressive sell-off. As you can see, huge rounds of aggression selling off. Continually and more sell-offs all throughout the 8th. Brutal day if you happen to have had a long position. And it just continues and continues into the 9th. More aggressive and brutal sell-offs. Higher positions, that tug of war really strong between the bulls and the bears. But ultimately, it just wasn't enough. And you see where the bot is really starting to pick up huge amounts of reserves as that market just goes back and forth swinging. Where when the bulls pull it one way, it picks up a large number of positions. And then the bears come back hard and it just really sells off aggressively. And it continues until we really get to the point that we hit the price consolidation predictions that the bot made. This is where things just go crazy. You see the replacements, but now you're starting to see a whole different kind of replacement. You're starting to see an aggressive cluster replacement. This is where the price prediction and the current price is within a range of 99.73% proximity. So the current price, this current price, is 99.73% approximate to the predicted price level. That works out to be about 40 pips. And you can see it starts racking up huge, insane unit sizes as it really just takes advantage of that. Now, the other thing about a cluster replacement that's critical to know that's very different from a regular replacement is the market must be in the direction of the account. In this particular case, I am short trading, so my account is short. So the market direction is lining up in a short direction. So when the market and the account are trading in the same identical direction, then the bot reacts and responds aggressively when it is within a certain level of the predicted price. And I have some charts I'm going to show later of that kind of information. But you can see this huge sell-off, the huge aggression level that the bot is exhibiting. When you really look at the unit sizes, they're really climbing aggressively. And this just continues as it rips into the market and making unbelievable profits. As the market continues in the direction of shorting, and these positions are just really being hammered out. This is where money is made. This is where the bot really shows its strength, and where it is a brutal testament of just how profitable a grid bot can be when everything lines up perfectly. And here you see we leave the consolidation zone. No more cluster replacements. So this price is below the consolidation price predicted. It's outside the 99.73% predicted place I wanted it to be to kick in the aggressive stages. And you see within a short order, it just unloads all of these orders. And you see how the profits just really rack up as they get unloaded. Now mind you, this is using very small amounts. If I had had a large number in this bot, it would have racked up a lot of money. But you can see it just continues. Complete sell-offs, more and more, and as the mathematics and predictions work, it enters another zone of consolidation and the cluster selling begins again. Another huge rack up, impressive amounts of trading here. And so a second full-scale cluster sell-off. This is where the market and the bot are just right there one-on-one hammering out these positions. Again, you can see the profits racking up in the balance. Even though they're only pennies, they're going fast. In fact, on Thursday of last week, the bots brought in about $11, and on Friday, it brought in close to $13. Just those 2 days from this aggressive cluster activity. And it just keeps on going. Continually just hammering out this market. Incredibly vicious and incredibly aggressive. And as you continue to look at the cluster sizes, 338 units. Massive, massive climbing compared to what it was doing previously. And it just continues. We leave the consolidation zone shortly, then we go back into it again. And again, aggressive cluster replacements, really driving these numbers even higher. As you can see, 478 units. 478 units. That is a huge amount in such a short time that gets accumulated. I remember that day watching the margin because I was worried about whether or not I would need to shuffle things around because of the way the market was dropping so aggressively. I went from $10 in margin to $100 in margin just watching this. I stayed glued to the screen that whole day, hoping everything was going to work right because all of this up until that day was experimental. I didn't know if it was actually going to work. Thankfully it did, and it just really and impressively let loose on the market. Then a huge big sell-off. Another cluster consolidation zone and another sell-off. More and more battles between the bulls and the bears as the bot just really sat there working perfectly. I couldn't have asked for a better day, to be honest. For me, the profit wasn't even the issue that I was concerned about. That was just icing on the cake. The level of volatility I watched, and I actually sat there watching this on the charts, as I was literally just watching orders rolling up and down, as it's buying and selling within the market. And then finally we reached the close of the market. But you can really see that just how brutal last week was. Really the end of a 5-week run. And it leaves the question in terms of what's going to happen next week when the market's open. Are we going to go through this roller coaster of chaos again? Or is it going to do what it did with a huge rally that the bot is just going to slowly accumulate and wait? I can't answer that, to be honest. I can show you some charts where you can see price actions move at the bid-ask level. You can see how the spreads bounced around. You can even see real time of what my margin rate was. And we are going to get into those. But in terms of predicting what this market is going to do, if I go by last week, if I say it's going to go up, I'll be right. If I say it's going to go down, I'll be right. Because last week it did both. Where it's going to end up is going to be anyone's guess at this point. Okay, now we are back on the chart, and we're going to talk about the next part. The part that I spent the last 3 weeks building and collecting data on. So let's get straight into that and close this chart out. Well, if it will let me close it out. Here we go. I have built a private repository that is attached to the Jackrabbit Relay repository. So if you support Jackrabbit Relay through GitHub using the sponsors button, you will automatically get access to this repository that contains all of the data that I have collected since building this bot, including my own live trading information. I update this once a week, so you will see every single one of my trades. All of them. Even trades that took place before I got the logging and statistics information built into the bot. You will also see a complete list of the OANDA grid bot configurations that cover every possible configuration the bot supports for the yes/no options. So you can see just how many possibilities you have available. In terms of picking the risk level appropriate to your personal situation. You also have a sanitized version of my OANDA config files for the Jackrabbit Relay subsystem itself, where you will see how I set up my configuration. And we're not done. This repository is very aggressive. You see all of my OANDA logs, unfiltered, every last one of them. All of the data that you just saw in my VPS is in these files for each and every pair. So you can see which pairs have the most margin consumption and which pairs are capable of the best profits. And we're still not done with this repository, because once a night you get actively whatever current bot code I'm running, automatically updated nightly, my active bot. Unlike the repository for Jackrabbit Relay, where this bot isn't actively updated consistently, this code here is every single night. And finally, you get ticker data, what the bot actually collects and uses to perform its calculations with. Now, this is sanitized, so you can use it for a myriad of different types of analysis. And the data is large quantities, but all of this data is large quantities. So you get the bid, the ask, and the spread. And this is literally what I use for the bot to make its predictions and to be able to set up all of the arrangements appropriate to its functionality. Now I have two types of charts, and there are roughly 132 charts per each type. And we're going to get into that shortly. But here is the ticker data, here is the information about it. It tells you about it, and it gives you a link, which I'm going to demonstrate. You do not need to download this repository to see the charts. You can follow these instructions, and you will be able to display the charts in your web browser without downloading them. And that is exactly what I have done here. This is my real account, real money, since the time I started collecting the necessary data. And we're going to go through this. So the balance information. Here is my actual balance of my account, and you can see my deposits as these sharp lines. And then you see where the bot itself made active profits from buying and selling. Now you can zoom into all of this quite easily just by clicking and dragging. So this is the balance. Here is the equity. The equity is the balance minus the margin used. If it goes to zero, you lose this asset because it will end up with a margin call. So you see exactly where my equity was when I made those crazy runs and how those accumulations really racked up. Like those brutal cluster runs. Here's how it actually affected the equity. How those replacement orders just really ate it up. but you can see that I am still well above my safe levels. And you can see, for example, the exposure or the margin used directly on the basis of a given situation within the log. In this case, I used roughly $140 of margin for those cluster runs. That's quite a bit, but the profits this thing brought in was unbelievable. And it never got close to being stopped by my margin limit, which is 37% of my balance. So I have 132 charts of this information where you will see each account and each pair. Right now, 2 demo accounts and my live account, where you can see exactly how the market performed given its functionality. And next we get to the actual market itself. And this chart looks a little weird because the charting program does have some quirks about it. So let's get straight into the bid-ask price, where you'll actually see the bid price in red and the asking price in green. And if you zoom in, let's pick a spot to zoom in, you'll actually see the separation between the bid and the ask. And that is important. The separation of the bid and the ask says a lot, especially if they become extremely high compared to the historical levels. Which brings us to looking at the spread directly. You see where the spread changed dramatically and graphically at various points of the day, where you can zoom in, look at these spreads, and see how they affected and impacted the market. And finally, we get to the last 2 items that the prediction engines within the bot rely on. The volatility between the bid-ask spread. This is what the auto profit system is driven by. The volatility is the amount of pips that it determines is the best profit based upon how aggressive the market is. And as you can see, when you look at the history of it, it reacts pretty quickly to the market, trying to maximize how much your profits are going to be. So it responds very quickly, very aggressively, and very dynamically. And the last bit of information, the predicted consolidation price. This is what drives the entire cluster engine. This is what drives the big profits. When things just line up from top to bottom and the profits just roll in through those cluster replacements. Here's what it is. This is where it tries to predict and calculate where it thinks the price is going to go. And as of right now, when Monday's market opens up, it is likely to continue downward, as the price engine thinks that that's the next course. So as you can see, there's a lot of information provided in these charts that you don't have to download, but really, if you want the information, it's available to you. Now, this is not required. You do not need to subscribe to this bot. But subscription is only through GitHub sponsors. This is done because The subscription covers the expenses. And it is really any tier. Even the $5 tier. So for $5 a month, you have access to all of that information. If you're in the forex market, that can really help you pick the pairs, watch the pairs, and decide what trading you want to do. Now, this is the basically page. You click on the sponsor, you bring it up, you go to your $5 tier, select it, and then you complete the process. Now, this is not part of the Jackrabbit TV process. That's handled through Patreon. This is a separate thing if you want it. If you don't want it, it does not affect how your bot works because this information is not directly part of your running bot. Your bot will build the data it needs on its own as it's running. This is just strictly a statistical analysis of the market that my bots have been doing, and then I run through a 5-hour process of turning that data into charts. So if you like the idea, subscribe to it. You'll get access to it, and then you'll be able to get all of this information. So hopefully next week will be as insane as the last 5 weeks have been, with more profits, which I've actually made close to $100 of pure profit. And that's not counting my deposits. And that's insane considering that I have $300 is my maximum deposit. So if I go based upon my total I have in the market right now, I am almost at 33% profit within the last 5 weeks. And I only expect the profits to continue the way things are going. So if you like this information and you found this video helpful, please like it. Help the YouTube algorithm grow and help other people see that there are options to trading that don't necessarily require high risk. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And if you want to get notified when I release a new video, hit that notification bell. The notification bell. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Until next time.